everybody, welcome to another board game breakfast. Well folks, I asked you guys to get involved in the Jack Vasel Memorial Fund auction and you did so in an amazing way. It has raised over $20,000 so far. Again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, check it out. There is tons of awesome things that people have put up for auction. All the money goes to folks who need help. And you can put things up for auction or you can bid on what people have done. It is fantastic. That's pretty much it. We are now in review zone. Lots of things coming. Board Game Geek convention is coming up in a few weeks, but Christmas is on its way, so we have a lot of different things to focus on. And the first thing we should do is the news. Well, very little news this week. I mean, very little. I have one news item, and that's that Rio Grande has announced that they're going to be printing Temporum and Rattlebones. You'll be seeing those soon. Rattlebones is the customizable dice game. But actually, bigger news than that, we've been kind of watching Rio Grande and saying, are they ever going to do anything? Are they kind of like fading away? But they announced, first of all, they're reprinting Elfenland, which is one of the first games Alan Moon has done, in which you take elves and you're racing around this land trying to find the best way as you fly different things, as you ride different things from flying pigs to dragons, all sorts of things. And some expansions for Bonanza, the bean game from Uwe Rosenberg. And then the big announcements were an expansion for Race for the Galaxy, which isn't a surprise, but another expansion for Dominion. I thought, as did everyone else, that Dominion was pretty much finished. This is a big box expansion for Dominion. Will that revive interest in this once extremely popular, still very popular game? That remains to be seen. Anyhow, that's all the news I have. Let's go to kick. Once again, we take a look at one of the shelves, and I tell you why I keep the different games on there that I do. This shelf has some dice. I just like gigantic dice. But we also have here the big game Rolling Freight. Rolling Freight is a dice train game from Guerrilla Games, from Ape Games, which I really highly enjoy. For this game has replaced Age of Steam. Very deep Euro game type feeling, but I like it a lot. Then here's Ghost Stories Black Secret. This is actually Ghost Stories. I have all Ghost Story in both expansions, and I always keep games in their newest expansion box because it's usually the best quality one. A fantastic fun game, Ghost Stories. Then For Sale in Ink and Gold. These, I believe, are the only two that I have of this original Griffin Games series. I mean, I think many of the games in this series are good, but these two are by far the best two. Ink and Gold, a game which you push your luck. Love this one, bring it out all the time. And For Sale, which is one of those auction games, which I think is just amazing. Then on top of that here, we have Convoy. Now, this is a hard one to see here. This is from Portal Games. This is a two-player game, which I was very impressed with. One person is trying to run a convoy in this futuristic Hiroshima hex setting, and the other person is trying to stop them. Then on top of that, I have Agent Double or Double Agent. This is a game from Asmodee. I thought it was a very fun two-player game, trying to play agent at the right spot, right time. And then on top of here, we have Die Sieben Siegel. That's not how you pronounce it, but it's the Seven Seals. This is a trick-taking game in which you need to predict exactly how many tricks you're going to take and what color. Now, that sounds awfully difficult, but it's not. And at the same time, I think this is one of the most thoughtful, interesting trick-taking games that I've ever played.
Okay. I have a question for Fantasy Flight Games. Why haven't you reprinted Fury of Dracula? That's what I want to know, okay? Fury of Dracula is the best game ever! I mean, I'm running all over Europe, but those guys, they can't find me! They try to kill me, they don't kill me! That crap. That's no, yeah. They can't kill me.
Just because I'm Frankenstein's monster, don't mean my name be Frankenstein.
You listen to me, Fantasy Flight Games. You reprint Fury of Dracula, or there will be heck to pay. But I didn't think heck in my mind. You know what I'm talking about? Talking about bite, go down to heck. You know.
given a name by master. Just call me Stu and everything's fine. But everybody just calls me Monster. I don't have a place to call my own. I just keep on looking for my master. He left me in this world alone.
Just reprint Fury of Dracula. Have you heard this argument? Come on!
I'm evil, incarnate. Gosh darn it. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm evil, incarnate. Gosh darn it.
Grave Robbers from Outer Space. This is a game that I designed quite a few years ago. Received a nomination for an Origins Award. Tom Vasel gave it a favorable review. Thanks, Tom. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the game plays. What's the number one thing that a good B-movie needs? They need a good name. And that's the very first step to playing Grave Robbers from Outer Space. This is accomplished by revealing 6 cards off the top of the deck. Once we have 6 cards and their title words to take a look at, the players will rearrange them, work on them until they have a great sounding movie title. Ooh, Attack of the Three-Headed Teenage Sorority Thing, Part 4, because everybody loves a sequel. And what we're going to do is we're going to write that down, because each of these words is going to score people extra points if they have these cards in play at the end of the game. So, we've got characters. Characters, they're the stars of your film. You want them to live, you want your opponents to die. Characters can be set in locations. We've got ones that are good. They're worth positive points. You set your movie in a location, now it's a stronger movie. Then there are ones that are negative points. These are ones that you want to play on your opponent's movies. Props have a bonus to them, they will have traits, they will have special abilities, and your characters can own them. Creatures will have traits as well, special abilities, and they have an attack value. Special effects cards are unique in that they are the only cards you can play when it's not your turn, and they do all manner of different things. The last type of card in the game are the roll the credits cards. There's 2 of them in here. And what they do is they allow you to end the game early. Now, you might be wondering why I'm talking about a game that has been out of print since a couple of years ago. Well, the reason is that, like the reboots of classic horror franchises that we've seen in recent years, we know that nothing stays dead forever. Grave Robbers from Outer Space has a future. If you want to know about it, you can sign up for the mailing list, which is appearing on your screen right here.
Today we're going to take a look at a couple products from Daedalus, who makes accessories for board games. This here is a box for Dice Masters. Now this box here opens up with some very powerful earth magnets, and inside you have ways to keep Marvel Dice Masters. So you can see here that in the back here is a spot for cards, and it has these, which you can see has the Avengers logo half cut out of it, which I thought was a pretty cool thing. And then there's an X-Men one too, and you can rearrange these to fit your cards in. I have all the cards for both sets in here, so they fit pretty easily. I can fit more cards in. Then on the side here are 2 boxes that come out. Here I have all my basic dice, and here's some more of the basic action dice. And then there are trays here with the dice. You can see I have the dice sorted out here according to tray. So there's actually 4 trays that come in this box. So each of the trays, you don't need more than 6 characters of each of the different types. So just taking them out to show you, and I even have room. Both sets fit in here completely, and I have room for a few extra dice. And if I didn't mind to putting 4 dice, you know, like I want to have only 1 character per row, but if I didn't mind that, I guess I could fit even more in here. Now, this is one of the things they make, and this is pretty cool. The only disadvantage to this is getting the stuff in was a little tight to fit all the things in, and there's no good handle to carry it around either. I wish it was just a little easier to transport, but it is beautiful and it holds all my stuff well. That being said, let's take a look here. Here we have the Daedalus Dice Tower. Now this Dice Tower is big. It's probably too big because it's hard to move around. Although it's very light. This is a lot lighter than it looks. And it's just an excellent looking case here. So let's throw in some Scarlet Witch dice. Look at those things roll at the bottom. And it has just, I don't know, very satisfying. And I think you could throw dice from pretty far away. Hey, look, a dice got caught on the ledge there. So that's... Alright, so there's some Gambit and Scarlet Witch dice that rolled down there. A good dice tower. I don't know how practical it is because it's hard to transport, but this case is an amazing case, and if you have a lot of Dice Master stuff like I do, or when it does come out in a few weeks, maybe you want to check this one out. Okay, this is crazy. I have so many games to review. We are on it now, folks. We have 15 reviews that I'm going to put out this week, and Dan King, and maybe a few other reviews that you'll see, but we are going to start cracking down. And I have a lot of different reviews to do, so I'm going to scatter a lot of these smaller games and then have some bigger games. We have a very big game that we'll be reviewing this week, as well as a couple of the hot games from Essen, and hopefully I'll be continuing to do that over the next 7 weeks. So 15 games a week probably from now to the end of the year, so buckle up for that. My top 100 has finished up, so there's a couple other things on the horizon. Melody's going to start putting together her top 100 soon. We'll be doing, we have another top 10 list coming out this week, top 10 horror games. I guess that would be fitting for this week. And there's more on the horizon, more videos and more things we're working on. But right now, it's all concentrating on reviews. Don't forget, of course, to check out our podcasts, all the different podcasts we have, especially those part of the Dice Tower Network, which you can find at dicetowernetwork.com. Okay, whew, we got more to go. Let's do it.
Hey, it's the Captain here. Welcome back to Carry On. In this Encore edition, I'm going to talk about a few great games that you can play using nothing more than a deck of cards. My first recommendation is a classic trick-taking game called Hearts. Try to avoid getting any hearts, and especially watch out for the Queen of Spades. But if you're really daring, you can try to shoot the moon, take all of them, and get extra points. Personally, I like to play this game with 4 players. Give it a shot. The next recommendation is also a classic trick-taking game, Spades. This one's a particular military favorite. Every time I've gone out in the field, I've always played Spades. With Spades, you'll have 4 players and you'll work with the player opposite of you. Together, you'll guess how many tricks that you can take. If you underbid, you'll be penalized, but if you overbid, you can get a bag. So you want to estimate well. This is a great game. I highly recommend it. Give it a shot. The next game is Why'd you believe? I just said BS. Anyways, in this bluffing game, you'll work to try to get rid of all of the cards in your hand, but you're gonna have to bluff to do it. If someone catches you bluffing, you'll take on a whole lot of cards, in fact, all of those that have been discarded already. However, if you incorrectly accuse somebody, you'll take the cards. This one is a ton of fun. I highly recommend it. Another excellent game is Spoons. In Spoons, you're gonna be passing cards until you get 4 of a kind. As soon as you do, grab one of the spoons quick, because there's one less spoon than players, and the person that's left without, you're out. Now, the caveat here is you need more than just a deck of cards. You also do need spoons. But it's a great game. My next recommendation, and my very favorite game with cards, is Nerts. Now, Nerts has also been called Speed Solitaire or Pounce. And essentially what you're doing is you're playing solitaire with other people and doing it as fast as you possibly can. Nerts is a real-time, fun, fast game fit for family and friends. I'd recommend 4 to 6 players, but you will need enough card decks for each person, and they should have a different back. Well, that's it for now. I hope you can make great use of a deck of cards now. Until next time, carry on.
Hello, Chaz Marler from Pair of Dice Paradise with the next installment in this mini-series asking if the board game industry is experiencing a bubble and what it could mean if it bursts. Now, keep in mind that the purpose of this series is just to spark discussion. I'm not claiming to be an expert on the subject, just speaking from my own previous experiences on a topic that I enjoy talking about. Now, last time I started with the possible first sign of a board game bubble, too many titles being released. This, combined with other factors, may eventually result in a crash of the marketplace. I drew some loose comparisons to the flood of comics that washed onto the scene in the 90s, then dried up almost as quickly, taking a good chunk of the comics industry along with it. Now, at the height of the comics bubble in the mid-90s, the city of 150,000 people that I live in was supporting no less than 7 comic book shops. But then, crash! Now, is this comparison relevant? I don't know. But what I do know is that within the last 2 years, the same town has become home to at least 5 stores that focus on card and board games, including one that sells only zombie and horror-themed games and accessories. Now, allow me to repeat that because it seems vaguely important. This store isn't just selling board games. It's selling board games on one topic. There's currently enough zombie/horror-themed board games in the market right now to support a business that focuses on a single genre within this already niche market. More importantly, there are apparently enough customers in the market right now to sustain it. Now, if we lived in an alternate, backwards, bizarro dimension, I'd be content to say, this is just indicative of the growth of the marketplace as the board game hobby becomes more mainstream. Well, back here in this dimension, my answer to that is not necessarily. And in the next installment, I'll explain why.
Hey folks, I love the board game community, but one of my statements that I've always made is that anybody who says I am my own worst critic has never read the internet. You could be a cross between Mother Teresa and the nicest old lady who gives everyone wonderful chocolate chip cookies, and you will still have people saying negative things about you on the internet. And that is the way that it is. And there are certain parts of the internet that are worse than others. YouTube comments are often pretty bad, although I try to monitor the ones for the Dice Tower. And the sense of community that comes from being online can be negative like that, but it also can be incredibly positive. Community can be very positive. I mean, because of the online gaming community, the Jack Vasel Memorial Fund has actually started. All the people that were part of that, many of them I hadn't even met when I started it and worked with them. And when we needed help, people helped us, and that was great. And, you know, people can say things like, Board Game Geek is just a database. But there's a community of people there who actually get together every November and have this convention, which is super fun. Or when they cross each other, have a great time. And much of that is from the online community. Now, people don't like some forms of moderation in online communities. And I've been thinking about moving the Dice Tower forums off of Board Game Geek to a place where I can moderate them myself or have some people moderate them, because sometimes communities can have a few people can ruin those communities. I've always thought that, where people come in and they say very negative things, they troll, they try to start arguments, they make personal attacks, they use vulgar and rude language, they do something that just makes the community there an unpleasant place for everybody else. This is the same reason why restaurants, well, they used to have the not smoking and non-smoking sections, because you want to smoke, go ahead, but your smoke can kind of annoy it for everybody else. And if I'm having a party or something and some guy comes in and he's smoking in their face, and he's loud and he's belching and he's just shouting out really loud profanities and calling people jerks, we probably wouldn't want that person there, because that one person would drive away a lot of others. And I think the same thing is often true in online gaming communities. And so that's why I was considering moving to forums so that we could control those a little bit more. Now, there's always a thing, people are like, we want our free speech. Well, you have your free speech. The internet exists. But free speech is a governmental thing and often says you can say things about the government or say whatever you want without having to worry about going to jail. But I can still make my rules in my house or in my community. Now, I haven't decided to move the community yet for a lot of reasons. A lot of people don't want it to move. But still, I'm starting to see more and more sometimes where people go in and have negative personal attacks. And of course, Wheaton's Law can apply here. And of course, everyone should be nice to people on the internet. I think it's great to have very big, loud opinions. I hate this game. I love this game. I love this company. This company drives me crazy in a way that they do things. It's great to have loud, wonderful, opinionated opinions. But when you refuse to interact with other people, or you call other people's opinions stupid, or you're just basically a troll, I think you're a detriment to communities, and removing that person helps the community as a whole. Now, when that happens, people usually start throwing out claims of Nazis, which is ridiculous, and just a Godwin's Law situation happening there, or all this nonsense. But having a nice, polite community, to me, is a wonderful thing. You can say, well, I'd rather go to one of these places where I can just speak my piece and yell whatever I want, say my profanities. That's fine. That's what those communities are for. I have no use for it, though, and I found that the politer conversation is, and the more entertaining and interesting it is back and forth. This is just very interesting because there's many different communities, and I have found that the communities that have heavier moderation and where people have basically rules that they need to toe are often much more entertaining, and you get a bigger kick out of them. Sure, some people like to watch things self-destruct and just crumble. I mean, it's kind of like watching a house burning down, but it isn't good. It doesn't grow, and it in fact chases people away. And I'd rather bring in 20 people who want to love and get involved with gaming than keep one person who's a curmudgeon or just is very loud and vulgar. So there's actually no particular reason that made me think about this. I've just been going through different communities and watching things. I don't have anybody in particular in mind, but I've seen a lot of people yelling about community. I saw a brand new board game website started up, which seemed that it was just like this anti community where come in here and say whatever you want. And it was just all like this bastion of negativity. And I thought, well, that's what they want, I guess, but that's not something that I'm interested in. I really think the community that has grown online is amazing. I go to conventions and I meet people and we talk to people because I met them online. That's fantastic. But I want to be able to meet people in person and have a good relationship with them because of our relationship we had online, and not have them want to punch me in the face because I was a jerk to them. So I don't know. It's just an interesting topic. I'm still debating on whether moving the forums from Board Game Geek to my own little forums or not. Obviously, it seems like the majority of people don't want me to, but I still wonder if that might not be a better thing anyway. Just interesting things to think about. And that was my Thinks section for the week.
The Apostle Paul once wrote, "In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be established." It's true today as it was when it was written, especially on the subject of board games. As such, we're discussing a couple of witnesses to this great hobby of ours. We've compared the Dice Tower People's Choice with the so-called voters list on Board Game Geek, but today we're going to compare the 2014 People's Choice to the standard Board Game Geek rankings. These are the one everyone knows about. Which one of these lists is least like the other two? As before, I assembled a spreadsheet and came up with a formula. The game appears on both lists, gets 5 points, and they can get extra points depending on how close they are. The maximum total score is 1,000, with about 500 as what I figure a more realistic maximum. The final score for the standard Board Game Geek rankings, compared to the 2014 People's Choice, was 372.5, or 75% of our realistic maximum. Let's call that a C. Keeping in mind when I ran the same numbers for the voters list, it got a C+. Moreover, when comparing these two lists, 60 games appear on both. But for the Geek Voters list, that was 56. So these are all very similar, not very far apart. But of the top 10, when you compare the standard geek rankings, the People's Choice, only one game appears on both. But for the voters' lists, there were 9 games on both lists in the top 10. Okay, so you may be asking yourself, why is this significant? The numbers are also mostly very similar when we compare these 3 lists. Well, to me, the biggest deal is, when you're looking at the top of the list, which is where most people look, right? You're looking, what's a good starting point to recommend newcomers to the Geek Voters list? It's very good. People's Choice is very good. The Standard Board Game Geek rankings perhaps don't fulfill the purpose they were intended to. But what are your favorite games? Because something I found is that preference on board games, very much like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder.
What's happening, everybody? I'm John Zenglein from ChalkboardGameReviews.com, and I want to continue my segment about highlighting all those board game media creators out there who spend a lot of time and hard work making podcasts and YouTube videos for all of us to enjoy. So I wanted to highlight Marty and Tony from Rolling Dice and Taking Names. Now, somehow these guys have been labeled as the Statler and Waldorf of the board game community. I'm not sure how that happened. These guys never pick on anybody. If anything, these guys seem like the nicest guys in the world. Who wouldn't want to sit down and play a board game with them at the table? Their podcast is so professionally done. It sounds great. They got the most kick-butt music to start at the beginning of the podcast. And these guys really know their board games. They have a really good conversational-like quality between the two of them. And they don't just cover board games. They cover a lot of TV, movies, all sorts of geeky stuff. In their latest episode, actually, Tony's on vacation, so Marty gets Victoria Hand from Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Victoria Hand, to co-host with him. And they talk about going to New York City Comic Con, where they talk about cosplaying, talk about waiting in lines for panels, about how hard it was to get tickets. It was a really interesting listen. Also, if you want to know the difference between wagon wheels and moon pies, check out their YouTube videos. They also have something called a 5-minute initiative, where they have this just 5-minute dense conversation about a game, but it's just packed full of information. It's basically all of their final thoughts on the game and what they think about it. Rolling Dice and Taking Names is a great podcast, and they're just now starting to get more and more videos up on YouTube, but I highly recommend you give them a listen or a watch. Thanks for watching, everybody.
That's it for this week, folks. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel. You've been watching Board Game Breakfast. Hang on to your hats. Great things coming your way soon. I hope you're having a wonderful time gaming in the cooler weather. You've been watching Board Game Breakfast.
Thanks for watching Board Game Breakfast. Tune in each week for your daily dose of gaming goodness with Tom Vasel and all the gang. Until next time, I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast, a Dice Tower production. Sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., an amazing place to buy board games. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.